23 and a low of 24 degrees forecast.
Weather report brought to you by Mitsubishi Electric. Mitsubishi Electric StarMax Aircon saves you energy and money, is easy to clean and is the quietest.
Traffic.
Taking a look at what's happening out on the roads for you. Heavy traffic on Nickel Highway towards Shenton Way after Republic Avenue. Heavy on Rocher Road between Beach Road and Temasek Boulevard. Heavy on the TPE as well towards the SLE at Tampines Avenue 7 exit.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send the message through only when you are safely parked. You're with Money FM 89.3. The afternoon update, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon update on Money FM 89.3. Hello to everyone joining us again on social media, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm Rachel Kelly, and joining me in the studio is
Hongbin Jung.
Great to be back with all of you this Wednesday afternoon. I hope you're having a good midweek. We're halfway there, folks, halfway there to the weekend. Coming up on the show this hour, we've got Your Health, and the focus is on your heart because it is World Heart Day tomorrow. We're going to be speaking with a senior nutritionist from Singapore Heart Foundation to find out what you need to know when it comes to keeping your heart healthy. That's coming up at 3:15. So if you've got anything you want to know, drop us a text, 8855-0893, or drop us a comment in the section below, and we'll see if we can find out the answer for you, okay? Also coming up on the show, we're going to catch up on the markets in just a bit. But this interesting article that Hong Bin picked up. We often say, just Google it, right? Just Google it. You want to know what it is? Just Google it. What about investment terms? Well, there's an interesting article that's come out, and it says that the term stock market received over 2.4 million Google searches globally each month. The new data reveals the industry jargon that's causing the most confusion. So which industry jargon is causing the most confusion? Taking the top spot is, drumroll please,
ETF, and it's the average monthly searches for ETF is 103,000 per month.
Closely followed by IPO.
By 95,000 monthly searches on average.
Then
broker, which is at 46,000 searches.
That's right. Okay, so these are the top 3 searches on Google when it comes to investment and what terms people want to know about. So if you want to know about these top 3 terms, let's tell you, okay? So what does ETF stand for, Hong Bin?
Well, ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund, and it's essentially a fund that trades on exchanges, generally tracking a specific index. And then we have IPO, which is in the second place with 95,000 searches, and IPO stands for Initial Public Offering. So this is when a private company becomes public by selling its shares on a stock exchange. And lastly, we have broker coming in at third place with 46,000 searches. And people are asking what the word broker means, and in layman's term, a broker is basically an individual or a firm that acts as a middleman between an investor and a securities exchange.
There are a few other terms here that people may not be familiar with. There's one that people have been searching for. It's called a dead cat bounce. That has received 3,200 monthly searches, and it's no wonder so many people are asking what a dead cat bounce means. The saying refers to a temporary recovery in a share price after a substantial fall caused by speculators buying in order to cover their positions. There are also other terms such as to the moon and whales. So if you want to know what they are, just Google. Coming up next, let's check in on the markets.
Money FM 89.3. Financial updates from the Business Times.
Singapore shares in the red this Wednesday, echoing sentiment that we're seeing across the region as well. The STI currently down 1.3% at 3,123 points. We've got decliners leading the pack at the moment, 389 to 155 advances. In terms of volume so far, 1.07 billion securities worth $1.05 billion have changed hands so far. Hong Bin's been keeping a close watch on the markets for you. And Hong Bin, you've been watching shares of Keppel Corp today.
And that's because a new wholly owned subsidiary of its infrastructure arm is tying up with Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and DNV to explore the adoption of an ammonia-fired gas turbine on Jurong Island in Singapore. So under its agreement with MHI and DNV, Keppel will study the feasibility of an ammonia-fueled power plant. And so the group closed yesterday 0.6% lower at $6.97 after the news, and it's currently down nearly 2.2% at $6.82.
Okay, Hong Bin, let's move now to timing the market. We've been talking a lot about market volatility, and for those of you that are interested or tempted to time the market, how do you know when it's the right time? Well, there's an interesting article that's been published on Bloomberg, and they talk about just that. And they say, when stocks plunge, it's tempting to do something, anything, to regain control of your financial picture. But the odds are that jumping in and out of the market will only hurt your portfolio in the long term. So what should you look at? Well, they highlight a number of things, and they quote a number of investors and investment firms. Let's start off with what they share from Vanguard. Vanguard says focus on the long run. What do they highlight, Hong Bin?
Well, they've created this chart to show that while some bear markets since 1980 have been deep, many of the recoveries that followed were even greater and longer. So they say the average bull market had averaged total return of 99% between January 1st of 1980 to December 31st of 2021, and it lasted an average of 852 days, while the average bear markets had returns of negative 28%, and it lasted 236 days.
And we move then on to something that they mentioned from Fidelity, and Fidelity talks about lost opportunity cost.
And so an asset allocation team at Fidelity Investments, they've calculated returns for hypothetical investors who started out with $10,000 and either stayed invested in a portfolio tracking the S&P 500 or missed the best 5, 10, 30, or 50 days from this 1980s to 2022 period. So investors who stuck with stocks with dividends reinvested, they wound up with a hypothetical $1.1 million before accounting for taxes or expenses, while investors who missed the best 5, 10, 30, and 50 days in the market had returns that were respectively 38%, 55%, 84%, and 93% lower.
And Charles Schwab did something similar. So he looked at timing of the S&P 500 and compared a certain amount on an annual basis invested. What did he find out?
So basically, trying to pick the perfect moment to enter the market can come at a high cost. So to show just how much, what they did is they created 5 hypothetical investors who each got $2,000 to invest in S&P 500 every year from July 2002 from June 2022. So, but who took very different approaches to putting that money in the market. So investors with the perfect timing that invested $2,000 into the S&P 500 at its very lowest point every year wound up with $140,214 in 2022. And the person who plugged their money into the market on the first trading day of each year was left with $129,865, which is around 7.4% less than the perfect timer, but well ahead of hypothetical investors who either split up the money into 12 portions that went into the market at the start of each year, had the bad luck to invest at the market's peak every year, or who left their money in cash.
Okay, and just take a look at our Facebook. We've got a number of you joining us back again today. Hello to Zoe. Hello to Justin. I think there was a Thaddeus as well. And we've got Shamim as well. Hi, hope you're all doing well this Wednesday and you're having a great midweek. Stay with us. We're going to go up for your health. Coming up next, we are going to be speaking with a senior nutritionist on your heart and your health. You are listening to Money FM 89.3.
This is Money FM 89.3, Singapore's most influential radio station. Keeping you company through your workday. Money FM 89.3. Your health on Money FM 89.3.
You are listening to the afternoon update on Money FM 89.3. Today we're talking about your heart and your health. That's because World Heart Day falls on September 29th, which is tomorrow. Now, did you know that cardiovascular disease accounts for around 30% of all deaths in Singapore every year? That's 1 in 3. Now, high blood cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, smoking, and physical inactivity are the leading risk factors there. So what can we do to protect our health and our heart? We're joined now by Lim Kiat, who's a senior nutritionist at the Singapore Heart Foundation, to find out. Lim Kiat, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us, Lim Kiat. So I want to find out from you. Let's start off because high blood cholesterol is one of the leading risk factors when it comes to cardiovascular disease. But what exactly do we mean? And I know this is we're starting off at a bit of a basic point here, but what exactly do we mean by high blood cholesterol?
I think high blood cholesterol actually occurs when there is high cholesterol present in the blood lipids. I think in particular it's actually a situation where your total LDL cholesterol levels are too high, while HDL cholesterol is abnormally low. And I think in fact for high blood cholesterol level itself is actually a major risk factors when it comes to heart diseases. And I think what's very concerning is that it's actually a silent killer because it usually does not present any symptoms until one suffers from a heart attack or stroke.
I see. So that said, what is the prevalence of high blood cholesterol here in Singapore? We spoke about cardiovascular disease and, how significant that is in terms of the number of deaths that it causes in Singapore every year. But talk to us about high blood cholesterol. How prevalent is that here?
I think, unfortunately, in Singapore, the prevalence of high blood cholesterol in our population has actually increased significantly in the last 10 years, from 25.2% in 2010 to 39.1% in 2020.
So that said, though, why are we seeing an increase? That's quite a substantial increase.
I think there are a few reasons. I think it really boils down to the lifestyle, our eating habits, and even our physical activity level, because these are the few key major factors that can contribute to high blood cholesterol. So actually, by making such changes itself, it actually help us to lower our risk, and actually thereafter helping us to have a healthier heart as well.
So what can I do? What can we do to improve our heart health? Is it exercise? Is it diet? All of the above? How much do we need? How little should we eat? What do we need to know? Tell us.
I think there are two key factors that we can work about to actually have a healthier blood cholesterol. I think the very first one is to focus on our diet. Essentially, we need to have a healthy balanced meal, right? In a healthy balanced meal, what we want to have is at least a quarter plate of whole grains, a quarter plate of protein, and half plate of it should be fruits and vegetables. So actually by consuming this healthy balanced diet, you actually ensure that we have adequate nutrition to support our daily activities and our lifestyle. But I think more in particular is that to have a healthier blood cholesterol profile, we need to be particular about the fats that we consume in our diet. Rachel, do you know what are some example of bad fats in food choices itself?
I thought all fats are bad fats.
Good news. Okay, there are good fats and bad fats.
There are good fats. Where?
Yes,
I'm looking. Where? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, tell me, what are the good fats that I need to know about? I'm assuming good fats in protein sources such as fish.
Yep. Correct. So for good fats itself, will be protein like the oily fishes, in particular your salmon, your sardines, and even canned tunas, can be an option to obtain your good fats. And of course, on top of that, you can also consider your unsalted big nuts or even seeds, or even choosing a healthier cooking oil can actually help to incorporate all these good fats into your diet.
Okay, so it's basically about what you're saying is I need to balance the good fats with the bad fats, more good fats, less bad fats. But it's difficult, isn't it, to monitor on a daily basis? Do we need to be so strict with ourselves?
I think of course it has to be a balance of everything. I mean, of course, when it comes to bad fats, it's something that we shouldn't consume too much of it. But I think it's more towards moderation, right? I mean, some of us will have some guilty pleasures, or for example, we may love to have some chicken wings, or even some cakes, or even pastry in our diet. I
Ooh.
think I think it doesn't mean that we have to stop entirely. If we want to have a healthy blood cholesterol, what we can do is to set realistic target, reduce the frequency and amount gradually, so that eventually we can work towards a healthier blood cholesterol.
Lim Kiat, we've got a question that's come in from one of our listeners. We go down to Hong Bin. She will share that with us.
So we have a comment from Arif who says this is a huge question. What can we do to help our loved ones who have high blood cholesterol?
I think there are few things that we can work on. I mean, of course, eventually it's really to understand what is the existing eating habits of your loved ones. Focus on the areas that there's a need of improvement. For instance, like what I've shared earlier, right? If let's say we have identified some of our unhealthy eating habits that we have, it could be chicken wings and everything. Slowly reduce the intake of all this, because this will reduce the LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol in our body. Apart from that, we could also try to incorporate some healthy eating habits and lifestyle as well. So, for instance, rather than going for your white rice, incorporate some whole grains such as your brown rice or even quinoa to the staple. Incorporate some good fats such as your oily fishes or even your unsalted nuts and seeds would also help as well. And I think most importantly, apart from eating healthy, it's always good to start staying active as well. Also, I mean, and ideally, it's good to exercise at a moderate intensity for around 150 to 300 minutes per week.
150 to 300 minutes per week. Do we also want to talk about the number of steps? Can that play a part here? Do we need to stick to the 10,000 steps per day? Can that help?
I think that would be beneficial. I think, in fact, for step counting itself, it's beneficial for individuals who are trying to stay active or who has been sedentary, because it provides a measurable, or I would say easily quantified targets that they can work towards to for a healthier heart. So, for example, a rough gauge should be at 10,000 steps, right? It may actually indicate that you are quite active. But apart from steps itself, or just walking and jogging, it's also beneficial if you can actually start to incorporate different exercises or say activities that focus on muscle and bone strengthening, like weight training, Pilates, and everything else. To try to have a variety of it, so that it makes the exercise progress even much more enjoyable.
And that said, I mean, when we're talking about heart health here. So is cardio activity more beneficial? You mentioned weight training there as well, or is it really just a combination of all of the above?
I think a combination would always be beneficial. And I think when it comes to be it exercise or eating habits, I think it's important that we need to enjoy the process, the progress. And that's where we can slowly incorporate it. Taking baby steps actually help to make that habit even much more easily incorporated as part of a lifestyle.
We've got another question that's come in, and this question also links on to your point earlier about good fats, bad fats. Hongbin, would you like to share that with us?
This is from Zoe, who asked, for those who had atrial septal defect or diabetes, do they have higher chance of getting high cholesterol or any cardio disease? And if they are, what kind of cardio disease do they have to monitor for? And what kind of bad fats do they have to refrain from?
Thanks, Hongbin and Joey. I think, unfortunately, when it comes to cardiovascular disease, right, I think there's a strong linkage with other chronic diseases as well. Like, let's say for diabetes, actually, individual with cardiovascular disease or vice versa diabetes actually have a higher risk, at least 2 times to 4 times risk of getting diabetes if it's a cardiac patient, for example. So I think when it comes to bad fats itself, typically they are found in food that are animal-based products. It could be your fatty meat, your lard, your butter, and even palm-based vegetable oils and coconut oil. These are sources of bad fats that we should try to minimize our intake, and we should actually replace it with the good fats that I've shared earlier.
Coconut oil. I thought coconut oil was a healthy oil.
I think, unfortunately, the evidence are not conclusive yet. I mean, although there are some studies which suggest that there are some potential benefits, right, of coconut oil because of the MCTs, which could help in heart health, brain health, and even weight management. But I think so far, based on the research that has been done, I think a lot of it still lacks the rigor or say the quality research to determine if it's beneficial in the longer term. But actually, as of the current evidence that we have, we should still be mindful of our coconut oil intake because they're still high in saturated fat after all.
Lim Kiat, can you give me an example of one day's diet that would be a healthy day for someone who is looking to tackle high blood cholesterol? Say from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and perhaps some snacks. What would be a good example of a daily diet?
I think for me, my approach is usually convenient, right? We have to make things convenient and easily
Exactly.
achievable. So
Yeah.
usually for breakfast, it depends if you are an oats person or a sandwich person. For convenience wise, I think both are actually good option. So let's say for sandwich, it can be simply done by using 2 slices of wholemeal bread, and we can use canned tuna. So for canned tunas, of course, you have to. It's ideal to choose option that are tuna that's canned in water or olive oil. If some flavors is preferred, you can season it with some chili padi or some pepper, and you can just complement it with some lettuce, cucumbers, and tomatoes, and that would be something that's quite balanced that you can actually eat it on the go or even bring it to the office. That is
And that's
something
quite a
for
substantial breakfast as well, isn't it? So it's good to
yeah,
start you off for the day.
definitely. And I think it provides different health benefits because for the wholemeal bread itself is relatively high in fiber, so it keeps you full for a longer period of time. And the tuna itself is a source of good fats that can be beneficial in improving our cholesterol profile. So I think for lunch itself, if let's say you have to dine out, I think there are different options that we can consider. I think one of my personal favorite would be the mixed vegetable rice, the economic rice option, and the reason is
Okay.
because that's probably one of the easiest way that we can obtain a relatively good quantity of vegetables. So usually when it comes to the economic rice options, what you can do is to choose 2 vegetables and 1 protein. So protein wise itself, I think we can be quite flexible with it, but of course try to avoid the deep fried option. So by having that 2 vegetables and that protein itself, it will be generally quite balanced. And of course, for the staples itself, if it's possible, always opt for a brown rice option. And this will be what we call as a healthy balanced meal.
And then for dinner, any hacks if we're going out for dinner and drinks with our friends? What do we need to be mindful for in the evenings or the weekends? You know, I guess a lot of people are gearing up for F1 weekend this weekend. There may be a lot of dinner parties happening. How can we navigate those if we're being mindful of our diet and our cholesterol?
I think it can be challenging. I mean, if we want to, sometimes we want to eat healthy when we are dining out with our friends in a very dinner setting itself. So I think what we can do in that particular setting is, of course, to manage the quantity, right? Usually, I would like to say it's an opportunity for you to share the love, right? For those food that is less healthy, but you have to share. I mean, just share it around so that you reduce the quantity of it. But at the same time, try to incorporate more vegetables whenever it's possible. And of course, I think the word is to be more mindful about food that is not so ideal. It could be alcohol or deep fried food. Be more mindful of our intake. I think that should be something that we can work about on festive season also.
I love that. Share the love and mindfulness. We've got one last question coming in from one of our listeners before we wrap up the interview. Hongbin, share with us.
So speaking of vegetables, Justin asked, what are the most nutritious vegetables?
Thanks, Hongbing and Justin. I would say any vegetables work. Most important, you have to enjoy it as well also. And same goes for fruits and vegetables. I think there's no single fruits, vegetables, or food that is considered as the most nutritious. What we usually try to aim is to have a variety of it because all in all, different fruits and vegetables have different benefits. So by consuming a rainbow of it will be the best way to maximize all the nutrient intakes that we can have.
Wonderful. Well, Lim Kiat, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks so much, Rachel and Hongbing. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Lim Kiat, who is a senior nutritionist at the Singapore Heart Foundation. You're listening to Money FM 89.3. And thank you to all of you who have joined us on social media today. We will be back on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube tomorrow at 3 p.m. But you can tune in to the rest of the show in prime time on Money FM 89.3 because we are Singapore's most influential radio station. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Money FM 89.3. Money FM 89.3.